Hey everybody! Michael surprised me with a trip to Dinosaur World in Plant City, Florida. We had a great time. We were there for about 3 hours, and we've gotten so much footage, I've decided to make it its own standalone video in case anybody just wants to take a tour of Dinosaur World and see just the dinosaurs and not see the entire day that we vlogged. Dinosaur World is open every day of the year from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. except for Thanksgiving and Christmas Day. The day that we went, tickets for general admission of an adult were $25 a piece, although there are upcharges you can pay for extra experiences, but they do run sales from time to time for even cheaper tickets. General admission rates include access to over 200 life-size dinosaurs, along with the theme park's numerous shows and exhibits, including the area's largest interactive boneyard, the giant skeletal playground, and the prehistoric museum, featuring an impressive collection of animatronic dinosaurs, prehistoric dinosaur eggs, raptor claws, and everything else dinosaur. Additional encounters, such as the fossil dig and the Dino Gem excavation, are also available for a nominal fee. Active duty military can receive a free admission, and Dinosaur World is handicapped accessible. They have wheelchairs available for rent. It is also dog friendly, and you'll see in this footage that we did bring our little dog. The pups are allowed anywhere except inside the 2 museums that have animatronics. As soon as you walk through the entrance to the Dinosaur World Park, you are between these 2 life-size statues of Barosaurus, a giant, long-tailed, long-necked, plant-eating dinosaur. Remains of Barosaurus were first discovered in 1889 and have been found in Utah and South Dakota. Barosaurus comes from the Upper Jurassic period, which is the last geological epoch in the Jurassic period from 163.5 million to 145 million years ago. Only 6 vertebrae were discovered in 1889, but they necessitated naming a new species. The term Barosaurus was created for the bones from the Greek words for heavy and lizard. New remains from the 1889 Barosaurus were further excavated in 1898. Scientists have yet to unearth a Barosaurus skull, so they are assuming Barosaurus's head was similar to other sauropods who had long, low skulls with peg-like teeth in front of the jaws. Barosaurus was an enormous animal measuring 82 to 89 feet in length and weighing 12 to 20 tons, making it one of the largest dinosaurs to ever exist. The structure of the cervical vertebrae of Barosaurus allowed for a significant degree of lateral flexibility in the neck, but restricted vertical flexibility. This suggests that Barosaurus swept its neck in long arcs at ground level when feeding, and did not primarily feed on vegetation that was high off the ground. Next up are these almost adult human-sized juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex. Juvenile fossil specimens are rare, but scientists are trying to piece together what a young T-Rex was like by studying other Tyrannosaurus species. The body, behavior, and diet of a juvenile T-Rex likely had a lot in common with its smaller ancestors. Juvenile T-Rex teeth would have been like miniature steak knives, and it would have preyed on insects and small lizards. If the young T-Rex survived into adolescence, its teeth and diet would change dramatically as it became the apex predator we know today. Next up here is Acrocanthosaurus, a dinosaur that existed in North America during the early Cretaceous from 113 to 110 million years ago. Its fossil remains are found mainly in the U.S. states of Oklahoma, Texas, and Wyoming, although teeth, a tibia, and vertebrae have been found as far east as Maryland. Acrocanthosaurus was named after its tall neural spines from the Greek words for high, spine, and lizard. Acrocanthosaurus was one of the largest theropods, reaching 36 to 38 feet in length and weighing approximately 4.9 to 7.3 tons.
Dinosaur, your brain is too small for your body. Dinosaur, oh, no one wants to fight you, dinosaur. There's even some of us who like you, dinosaur. We know you're not too clever, so might we suggest you make less of a mess? Oh, Dinosaur, you're so big and you're so strong, so I get along with the puny throng that's
Next up here is a dinosaur called Uoplocephalus, a very large herbivore that lived during the late Cretaceous of Canada. The first fossil of Uoplocephalus was found in 1897 in Alberta, and to date about a dozen specimens have been found. These include a number of almost complete skeletons. Uoplocephalus reached 17 feet in length and 2.2 tons in body mass. Its body was low-slung and very flat and wide. Its head had a short, drooping snout with a horned beak to bite off plants. Uoplocephalus was largely covered by bony armor plates with rows of high-ridged oval scutes. The neck was protected by two bony ridges. It could also defend itself against predators with a heavy club at the end of its tail.
too big to stumble. You could dinosaur, oh, you could crumble under your very own weight. What a ridiculous fate, oh, dinosaur. Your brain.
I'm going to take this opportunity to apologize for any words that I may have mispronounced. I did my best to look them up and even play audio recordings of pronunciations, but sometimes there were several different ways of pronouncing single words, and I am human, I make mistakes, so I really apologize if I've gotten anything wrong. All the sources that I'm quoting from are listed down below in the description box. I'll be honest, I thought I had taken so much footage that I could talk forever about dinosaurs, but when you realize how much information is out there on the internet, it's just not possible to include it all in one video.
Driving you insane with fear and pain and sorrow, dinosaur. Don't despair, we'll help you out. If you don't wipe us out, if you let us live to see tomorrow, dinosaur. Your brain is too small for your body. Dinosaur, your brain is too small for your body.
Here's a sneak peek at the backside of a T-Rex you can see from the highway as you're pulling off on the exit to go to Dinosaur World.
Dinosaur. Dinosaur. Dinosaur, wouldn't you rather survive?
Dinosaur World is not to be underestimated as a beautiful walk through nature. They've done such an awesome job of putting the statues of the dinosaurs in with these trees and foliage and plants, so it's nice and shady, the sun's not beating down on you, the boardwalks are in great condition and everything else is paved. So it's a really, really nice nature walk, and I enjoyed that almost as much as looking for the dinosaurs. It reminds me, if you've watched our other videos on the remains of Bongo Land, how they've turned a little dinosaur scavenger hunt into a botanical gardens. This here is a Dilophosaurus, a theropod that lived in North America during the early Jurassic about 186 million years ago. 3 skeletons were discovered in northern Arizona in 1940. Its name means two-crested lizards, and further skeletons have been found, including an infant and even some footprints. Dilophosaurus was about 23 feet long and weighed 880 pounds. It was one of the earliest large predatory dinosaurs and was the largest known land animal in North America in its time. This is a Diplocaulis, whose name means double call, an extinct amphibian that lived about 270 million years ago in the late Carboniferous period in North America and Africa. It is characterized by a distinctive boomerang-shaped skull. Diplocaulus had a stocky, salamander-like body but was large, reaching up to 3.3 feet in length. A complete tail has never been found, but a nearly completely articulated skeleton was described in 1917 with a row of tail vertebrae near the head. This was interpreted for evidence that it was capable of reaching its head with its tail when curled up. Most studies argue that tail movement was the main force of locomotion utilized by Diplocaulus and its relatives. If there's one thing I like as much or maybe even more than dinosaurs, it's mammoths. I was surprised and delighted to find that Dinosaur World had created this entire mammoth community with all different sized mammoths for us to enjoy. If there is one prehistoric animal I wish I could bring back to life, it's definitely mammoths. Mammoths lived from the Pliocene epoch into the Holocene, or from about 5 million to about 4,000 years ago. Various species existed in Africa, Europe, Asia, and North America. Since many remains of each species are known from several localities, it is possible to reconstruct the evolutionary history of the genus through morphological studies. Mammoth species can be identified from the number of enamel ridges on their molars. The primitive species had few ridges, and the number of ridges increased gradually as new species evolved and replaced former ones. At the same time, crowns of the teeth became longer, and the skulls of the mammoths became higher from top to bottom and shorter from the back to the front over time to accommodate their changing teeth. In February 2021, scientists reported that DNA from 1 million-year-old mammoth remains had become the oldest DNA ever sequenced. The largest known species of mammoth reached heights of about 13.1 feet at the shoulder and weighed about 8.8 tons, although exceptionally large males may have exceeded 13 tons. However, most species of mammoths were only about as large as a modern Asian elephant, around 6 feet at the shoulder and rarely exceeding 5 tons. Both males and females bore tusks that first appeared around the age of 6 months old and then replaced at 18 months with a permanent set. Tusks grew at a rate of 1 to 6 inches per year. The word mammoth was first used in Europe in the 17th century when referring to tusks discovered in Siberia. Tusks were often found in washed-out riverbanks. Some local people claimed to have seen living mammoths, but claimed that they only came out at night and always disappeared under the water when detected. Native people from Siberia routinely found mammoth bones and sometimes even frozen mammoth bodies in eroding riverbanks, and they believed that the mammoths were some sort of water spirit that lived underground, burrowing tunnels as it went. Thomas Jefferson, who famously had a keen interest in paleontology, is partially responsible for transforming the word mammoth from a noun describing prehistoric elephant-like animals into an adjective describing anything of surprisingly large size. The first recorded use of the word as an adjective was in a description of a large wheel of cheese given to Jefferson in 1802. It isn't entirely clear just exactly how mammoths went extinct. The woolly mammoth was the last species of this genus to exist, and most woolly mammoths died out at the epitome of the last glacial retreat as part of the mass extinction of megafauna in Eurasia and the Americas. The warming trend called the Holocene occurred around 12,000 years ago, accompanied by a glacial retreat and rising sea levels. Forests replaced open woodlands and grasslands across the continents. The available habitat would have been reduced for some megafauna species such as the mammoth. The spread of advanced human hunters has also been blamed for the extinction of some of the megafaunal species. However, more recent studies suppose that humans may not be responsible for the extinction of mammoths after all, and it was probably the rate at which their entire climate and environment changed that did cause the mammoths to go extinct. Here we have a Lystrosaurus, named for the Greek words meaning tool for leveling or smoothing, like a shovel or a spade. This is an extinct herbivore from the late Permian and early Triassic epochs, around 250 million years ago. They ranged in size from that of a small dog to 8 feet in length and were built heavily. The horny beak was used to bite off pieces of vegetation. The structure of its shoulders, hips, and hind limbs suggests that Lystrosaurus moved with a sprawling gait and was probably a powerful digger that nested in burrows. Lystrosaurus fossils have been found in many terrestrial bone beds, most abundantly in Africa, but also in India, China, Mongolia, European Russia, and Antarctica. This is a Dimetrodon who lived 295 to 272 million years ago. Dimetrodon is often mistaken for a dinosaur or a contemporary of dinosaurs, but in fact it was extinct some 40 million years before the first ever appearance of any dinosaur and is much more closely related to mammals. The sail on its back was most likely used to stabilize its spine or to heat and cool the body, or perhaps in courtship or to threaten away rivals. Next we have Tanystropheus, who lived in the Triassic period from 252 to 201 million years ago in Europe, Asia, and North America. Its name means long and hinged in Greek. Some species reached a total length of about 20 feet. Tanystropheus's neck is rather stiff and ungainly, but its limbs and tail lack most adaptations for swimming. Recent studies have supported the position that the animal is equally capable on land and in the water. Tanystropheus was most likely an ambush predator of fish. Its skull is supplied with 3 cusped teeth suited for holding on to slippery prey, while the skull bears an interlocking set of large, curved fangs. This is Massospondylus, one of the first dinosaurs ever to be discovered, found in South Africa in 1854. Massospondylus existed between 200 and 183 million years ago and was 13 to 20 feet long. A 2007 study found Massospondylus to be bipedal and probably a plant eater. Recent studies indicate that Massospondylus grew steadily throughout its lifespan, possessed air sacs similar to those in birds, and may have even cared for its young. Saurosuchus, which means lizard crocodile, was actually not a dinosaur. Saurosuchus is an ancestor to modern crocodilians and is probably the largest land predator to ever exist that was not a dinosaur. Saurosuchus was likely able to hunt the ancestors of long-necked dinosaurs. This extinct genus lived in South America during the late Triassic period from 237 to 201 million years ago. Saurosuchus is estimated to be about 18 feet long and weigh over 550 pounds. I am not sure where Dinosaur World has their Crassigyrinus, as this genus lived entirely underwater with legs far too tiny to help it walk on land. Its name comes from the Latin and Greek words for thick and tadpole. Crassigyrinus grew to be about 6 feet in length, with a fish-like head and tiny back legs that were virtually useless. Studies have shown it may have been able to open its mouth as wide as 60 degrees, which suggests it was a powerful predator with a strong bite. It was probably ideally suited for catching fish. Next, here we have Liliensternus, a neotheropod dinosaur that lived approximately 210 million years ago in what is today Germany. Liliensternus was a moderate-sized bipedal, ground-dwelling carnivore that could grow up to 17 feet long and weigh around 440 pounds at the most. Although the skull is not well known, many reconstructions have Liliensternus with a crest. It has 5 fingers, but the 4th and 5th digits are smaller than the rest, a possible transitional phase between the 5-fingered Triassic and the 3-fingered Jurassic theropods. This is Coelophysis, a theropod dinosaur that lived approximately 228 to 201 million years ago during the late Triassic period in the southwestern United States. Coelophysis was a small, slenderly built, ground-dwelling, bipedal carnivore that could grow up to 9.8 feet long. A number of complete fossil skeletons of Coelophysis have been found, but the weight is estimated to be only as much as 55 pounds. Coelophysis was a fast, agile runner with narrow hips and narrow feet. Its neck and tail were long and slender. Coelophysis had vision superior to most lizards, comparable to modern-day birds of prey, but with a round pupil in each eye indicating poor night vision. Ceratosaurus was a carnivorous theropod that lived in the late Jurassic period from 161 to 146 million years ago. This genus was first described in 1884 based on a nearly complete skeleton discovered in Garden Park, Colorado, in rocks belonging to the Morrison Formation. A juvenile was discovered in 1999, and a partial specimen was excavated in Portugal in 2000. Ceratosaurus was between 17 and 18 feet long and characterized by deep jaws that supported long, blade-like teeth. A prominent ridge-like horn on the midline of the snout and a pair of horns over the snout are distinguishing features that may have served no other purpose than to attract mates. Stegosaurus is one of the most recognizable dinosaurs with a name that literally means roof lizard. It is a genus of herbivorous, four-legged armored dinosaurs from the late Jurassic period, characterized by the distinctive kite-shaped plates arising along their backs and spikes on their tails. Fossils of Stegosaurus have been found in the western United States and in Portugal, dating between 155 and 145 million years ago. The remains of over 80 individual animals from this genus have been found. Stegosaurus was large and heavily built. The function of the array of plates and spikes has been the subject of much speculation, but today it is generally agreed that their spiked tails were most likely used for defense against predators, while their plates were most likely used for display and possibly thermoregulation. Stegosaurus had a relatively low brain-to-body mass ratio, giving it the reputation as being one of the lesser intelligent dinosaurs. It had a short neck and small head, meaning that it most likely ate low-lying bushes and shrubs. This little guy is known as Scutellosaurus, a dinosaur that lived approximately 196 million years ago during the early Jurassic period in Arizona. It is an armored bipedal dinosaur. Scutellosaurus was a small and lightly built, ground-dwelling herbivore that could grow up to around 4.3 feet long. It had several hundred osteoderms running along its neck to its back and as far down as its tail. These formed parallel rows with as many as 5 rows on each side. This odd-looking dinosaur is known as a Gastonia, a genus of herbivorous ankylosaurians from the early Cretaceous period around 139 to 134 million years ago. Gastonia was first discovered as a single skull and 4 partial skeletons in a bone bed in eastern Utah. Gastonia was formally named in 1998 in honor of the U.S. paleontologist Robert Gaston. Huayangosaurus is a genus of stegosaurian dinosaur from the Middle Jurassic period of China. Its name is derived from the province where it was found and from the Greek word for lizard. It lived around 165 million years ago, some 20 million years before its famous relative, the Stegosaurus. At only about 13 feet long and around 1,100 pounds, it was also much smaller than its famous cousin. Dilophosaurus lived in North America during the early Jurassic period, about 186 million years ago. 3 skeletons were discovered in northern Arizona in 1940. Dilophosaurus bore crests on its skull, earning itself a name that means two-crested lizard. Further specimens have since been found, including an infant, footprints, and resting traces. Dilophosaurus was about 23 feet long and weighed around 880 pounds, making it one of the earliest large predatory dinosaurs and the largest known land animal in its time. It was slender and lightly built, and its skull was large but delicate. The snout was narrow and the upper jaw had a gap or kink below the nostril. Dilophosaurus had a pair of arched crests on its skull, whose shape is not known, but they were probably enlarged by keratin. The crests were probably too weak for battle, but may have been used for visual display. It was active and bipedal and probably hunted large animals. Next here we have a family of Saltosaurus, whose name literally means lizard from Salta, a genus of dinosaur from the late Cretaceous period around 70 million years ago. Saltosaurus was found in the region of Salta in northwest Argentina between 1975 and 1977, and it was given its name in 1980. Saltosaurus was small among sauropods, although still heavy by the standards of modern creatures. Saltosaurus was characterized by a short neck and stubby limbs. It was the first genus of sauropod to possess armor of bony plates embedded in its skin. Saltosaurus is estimated to have been at maximum about 28 feet long and weighing 2.8 tons. Its teeth were cylindrical with spatulate points. Like all sauropods, Saltosaurus was herbivorous and graviportal, meaning it could not run because its hind limb had to be held straight at the load-bearing phase of its walking cycle. Adults were protected from predators by their body armor, while juveniles were protected by the herd as a whole. Styracosaurus is named for the Greek words meaning spike at the butt end of a spear shaft and lizard. It is a genus of herbivorous ceratopsian dinosaurs from the Cretaceous period, about 75.5 to 74.5 million years ago. Styracosaurus was first collected in Alberta, Canada in 1913. Styracosaurus was a large dinosaur with 4 short legs and a bulky body, reaching 16 to 18 feet in length and weighing 2 to 3 tons. It stood about 6 feet tall. The skull had a beak and shearing cheek teeth arranged in a continuous dental battery, suggesting that the animal sliced up plants. This dinosaur was most likely a herd animal traveling in large groups as suggested by the bone beds. Styracosaurus had 4 to 6 long parietal spikes extending from its neck frill, a small jugal horn on each of its cheeks, and a single horn protruding from its nose, which may have been up to 2 feet long. The function of the horns and frills has been debated for years. Iguanodon was named in 1825 and lived during the early Cretaceous periods between 126 and 122 million years ago in Belgium, Germany, England, and Spain. Iguanodon was a large and bulky herbivore measuring 30 to 36 feet long and weighing 5 tons. Distinctive features include large thumb spikes, which were used for defense against predators, and fifth fingers that enabled foraging for food. Iguanodon is both one of the first dinosaurs found and described and one of the best known dinosaurs. Iguanodon has been well placed as a barometer of changing public and scientific perceptions of dinosaurs. It has been reconstructed 3 times, from an elephantine 4-legged reptile in Victorian times to a bipedal but reptilian animal propped up on its own tail during the early 20th century, until finally being overturned in the 1960s to a more agile creature able to shift from 2 legs to all 4s at will. Psittacosaurus is a cute genus of extinct ceratopsian dinosaurs from the early Cretaceous period, from 126 to 101 million years ago. Psittacosaurus is notable for being the most species-rich, non-avian dinosaur genus. Up to 12 species are known from across China, Mongolia, Russia, and Thailand. Psittacosaurus were bipeds at adulthood with a high skull and robust beak. Psittacosaurus probably had complex behaviors based on the proportions and relative size of its brain. It may have been active for only short periods of time during the day and night, and it had a well-developed sense of smell and vision. Protoceratops means first horned face, and it lived in Asia during the late Cretaceous, around 75 to 71 million years ago. Protoceratops were around 6.6 to 8.2 feet long and weighed around 137 to 229 pounds. Adults were largely quadrupedal, while juveniles had the capacity to walk around bipedal if necessary. They are characterized by a proportionally large skull with a parrot-like beak, short and stiff neck, and a neck frill. The frill was likely used for display or intraspecific combat, as well as for the protection of the neck and anchoring the jaw muscles. A horn-like structure was present over the nose. I'm a bit confused by this display, as Protoceratops were herbivores, equipped with prominent jaws and teeth suited for chopping foliage and other plant material. They are thought to have lived in highly sociable groups and appear to have cared for their young. They laid soft-shelled eggs, a rare occurrence in dinosaurs. Ornitholestes means bird robber, and this is a small theropod dinosaur of the late Jurassic Age, about 154 million years ago. Ornitholestes is known from only a single partial skeleton with a badly crushed skull found in Wyoming in 1900. Ornitholestes has therefore been described several ways over the years and is most recently supposed to have weighed about 33 pounds and be about 6.6 feet long. Ornitholestes was a bipedal carnivore with its head proportionally smaller than most other predatory dinosaurs. Its skull is heavily built with a short snout and robust lower jaws. Ornitholestes is often portrayed as a fast, long-legged theropod, but its lower limbs were actually fairly short. Here we have Dromaeosaurus and Troodon. Both of these dinosaurs are late Cretaceous meat-eaters. Dromaeosaurus was equipped to kill its prey with a claw on its hind feet. Troodon, known over a century by just a single tooth, is shown here on a nest. Both of these dinosaurs had room in their skulls for unusually large brains. Dryptosaurus is a theropod that lived on the island continent of Appalachia approximately 67 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period. Dryptosaurus was a large bipedal, ground-dwelling carnivore that could grow up to 25 feet long and weigh 1.5 metric tons. In the late 1800s, Dryptosaurus was one of the most widely known dinosaurs due to a painting by Charles R. Knight, and it was one of the first theropods ever known to science. Dryptosaurus may have only had 2 functional digits, each of which were tipped with an 8-inch long talon-like claw. Its arm morphology suggests that Dryptosaurus may have used both its arms and its jaws as weapons when hunting, capturing, and processing prey. Next up here we have Pachycephalosaurus, which means thick-headed lizard, who lived during the late Cretaceous period in western North America. Remains have been excavated in Montana, South Dakota, Wyoming, and Alberta, Canada. This species is known mainly from a single skull plus a few extremely thick skull roofs, which are 9 inches in thickness. Pachycephalosaurus was among the last species of non-avian dinosaurs to evolve before the extinction event. It was a bipedal herbivore possessing strong and long legs and somewhat small arms, with 5 fingers per hand. Its skull suggests a battering ram function in life evolved for use as a defensive mechanism in intraspecies combat, similar to what is seen in today's bighorn sheep. Here are 2 non-dinosaurs, a Dicynodon and a Lycaenops. Dicynodon was a herbivorous, toothless reptile with prominent tusks, hence its name, which means 2 dog teeth. Dicynodon is from the latest Permian period and has been found in South Africa and Tanzania. In this scenario, it is being attacked by the Lycaenops, which is a carnivorous animal that lived in South Africa in the middle to late Permian period, about 260 million years ago. Lycaenops means wolf face. Next up is the Sylvosaurus, first discovered in the 1950s in Kansas. The remains are incomplete and disarticulated, and the condition of the fossils was poor, as the bones had been exposed at the bottom of a dry riverbed, in addition to being weathered and trampled by cattle. Based on the remains, the animal is estimated to have been approximately 13 feet long. The head contained large air passages, which presumably were for loud vocalization and communication. Here is a Peleconomymus, which means pelican mimic, an extinct genus of primitive dinosaur from the early Cretaceous period found in Spain. Peleconomymus was a small ornithomimosaur, about 6.2 to 8.2 feet long and weighing between 37 and 66 pounds. Its skull was unusually long and narrow, and it is notable for having a very large number of teeth. This is one of the museums at Dinosaur World that I really enjoyed. It's called the Skeleton Garden, and it's just a short loop walk around, but you will see they have reassembled some dinosaur skeletons in cool positions, such as standing upright, which I really enjoyed and was something I'd never seen before. This is a Skeletosaurus, a herbivore with a light layer of armor from about 191 million years ago and found in the British Isles. This is Centaurosaurus, a genus of hadrosaurid dinosaurs first discovered in 1850 in China. It was about 27 feet long and weighed about 2.8 tons. As a hadrosaur, Centaurosaurus had the characteristic duck-bill snout and a battery of powerful teeth which it used to chew vegetation. It usually walked on all fours but could rear up on its hind legs to scout for predators and to flee when it spotted one. Centaurosaurus probably lived in herds. Centaurosaurus has a very distinctive projection on its head. Unlike other such projections on similar dinosaurs, this one pointed ahead of the animal. Scientists have speculated that this projection might have been used to enhance its sense of smell, or to make sound, or perhaps for combat or display. This next dinosaur took me by surprise when I realized it is not a Triceratops. This is Torosaurus, which means perforated lizard, and it is a genus of herbivorous ceratopsians that lived during the late Cretaceous period between 68 and 66 million years ago, although it's possible they extended back even further. Fossils have been discovered across the western interior of North America as far as from Saskatchewan to Texas. Torosaurus possessed one of the largest skulls of any known land animal, with a frilled skull of about 9 feet in length. Torosaurus is thought to have been about the same size as its contemporary Triceratops, but it is distinguished by an elongated frill with large openings and 5 or more pairs of hornets on the back of its frill. Torosaurus also lacked the long nose horns seen in Triceratops. However, it is actually debated today if perhaps Torosaurus is in fact an adult Triceratops, with the bones of a typical Triceratops being immature and showing the first signs of development of distinct Torosaurus frill holes. This is Hylaeosaurus, a herbivorous ankylosaur that lived 136 million years ago and is found in England in the Grinstead Clay Formation. Hylaeosaurus was one of the first dinosaurs ever to be discovered, found in 1832. Only limited remains have been found and much of its anatomy is unknown. Hylaeosaurus was about 25 feet long, and it wore armor and it carried at least 3 spines on its shoulders. It possibly weighed as much as 2 tons. Myosaurus comes from the Greek words meaning good mother and reptile. Myosaurus is a large herbivorous hadrosaur that lived in Montana and Alberta, Canada in the Upper Cretaceous period about 76.7 million years ago. The first remains of Myosaura were discovered in 1978, and they were given their name because of the finding of nests with eggs, embryos, and young in a nearby nesting colony. This showed that Myosaura fed their young while they were still in the nest, the first time such evidence was ever obtained for a dinosaur. Myosaura were about 30 feet long. Young walked on hind legs and adults walked on all fours. Dromaeosaurus is a genus of theropod from the late Cretaceous period found in Alberta, Canada. Its name means emu mimic. Dromaeosaurus was a carnivore that pursued its prey on its ostrich-like hind legs. It appears that it could probably outrun today's ostrich. Protoceratops literally means first horned face, and it existed in Asia during the late Cretaceous, around 75 to 71 million years ago. It was first described in 1923 with fossils from the Mongolian Formation and later with fossils found in China. Protoceratops were small, only about 6.6 to 8.2 feet in length and weighed between 137 and 229 pounds. Mosasaurus is represented here down in the water. Mosasaurus is an extinct group of aquatic reptiles that lived from 82 to 66 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period. The first fossils were found as skulls in a chalk quarry in the Netherlands in the 18th century and were originally thought to be the bones of crocodiles or whales. Traditional interpretations have estimated the maximum length to be up to 56 feet long, although some scientists think this may be a bit of an overestimation. The skull of Mosasaurus was equipped with robust jaws capable of swinging back and forth and strong muscles capable of powerful bites using dozens of large teeth adapted for cutting through its prey. Its 4 limbs were shaped into robust paddles to steer the animal underwater. Its tail was long and ended in a downward bend. Mosasaurus was a predator possessing excellent vision to compensate for its poor sense of smell, and it was probably warm-blooded. Please enjoy this nature walk around a loop with a variety of sized Ultrasaurus on display. Ultrasaurus literally means ultra lizard and was first named by Hwang Mook Kim in 1983. Ultrasaurus was a herbivore of uncertain but large size, known to inhabit South Korea during the Cretaceous period. Few bones have been found, and Ultrasaurus is seen today as a dubious genus of sauropod dinosaur, given that it would be nearly impossible to attribute further remains to this genus without more fossilized evidence. Ultrasaurus is perhaps most famous for forcing a name change in a North American genus of Diplodocus dinosaur. In 1985, the paleontologist James A. Jensen named 3 new sauropods from fossils recovered in the Morrison Formation as Ultrasaurus. He was unaware of Hwang Mook Kim's description of a South Korean sauropod that preceded his, and Jensen had to rename his dinosaur from Ultrasaurus to Ultrasauros. This is all now a moot point after Jensen's Ultrasauros was discovered to be a fossilized Brachiosaurus, in fact, possibly Brachiosaurus itself. It is also speculated that the South Korean Ultrasaurus might also be another sauropod genus. Next up, we have Spinosaurus, a dinosaur that lived in North Africa about 99 to 93.5 million years ago. This genus was first known from Egyptian remains discovered in 1912, but those original remains were destroyed in World War II. Spinosaurus was probably about 46 feet long and weighed around 8 tons. Spinosaurus was possibly semi-aquatic, being capable of swimming, because its leg bones had a high bone density, allowing for better buoyancy control. The function of this dinosaur's sail or hump is uncertain. Scientists have proposed several hypotheses, including heat regulation and display. And here is a Triceratops, one of the best known, recognizable, and beloved of all dinosaurs, and a big favorite of mine. Triceratops literally means three-horned face, and this dinosaur lived in the late Cretaceous period from 68 to 66 million years ago in western North America. Triceratops was one of the last known non-avian dinosaurs to exist, and was also one of the largest in body mass, measuring up to 30 feet long and weighing in at just short of 10 tons at maximum. Triceratops probably shared the landscape with Tyrannosaurus rex, although it is unclear if they ever engaged in battle as depicted in museums and modern art. The first fossil specimen now attributed to Triceratops were a pair of brow horns attached to a skull roof found in 1887. And originally they were thought to belong to an American bison. Horned dinosaurs were discovered the following year, but it took a series of skulls before Triceratops was imagined and described. Cowboy Edmund B. Wilson was startled one day by the sight of a monstrous skull poking out of the side of a ravine. He tried to recover it by throwing his lasso around one of the horns, but the horn broke off and the skull went tumbling to the bottom of the cliff. Wilson took the horn to his boss, who happened to be an avid fossil collector, and subsequently the rest of the skull was recovered. This was the third similar skull and horn discovered, leading scientists to come to the conclusion that there was a new species of dinosaur that needed a name. The sturdy nature of the animal's skull has ensured that many examples have been preserved as fossils. The function of Triceratops' frills and 3 distinct facial horns have inspired countless debates. Traditionally, these have been viewed as defensive weapons against predators, but more recent interpretation find it more probable that they were used in species identification, courtship, and displays of dominance, like the horns and antlers of many modern-day ungulates. Stygimoloch was a plant-eating dinosaur with bony spikes and knobs on its skull. Stygimoloch was first discovered in Hell Creek, Montana in 1983 and determined to live about 68 to 65 million years ago. Stygimoloch had an extremely thick skull roof, and 22% of all found have had evidence of a bone infection, implying that they were probably used in intraspecies combat. The velociraptor, which literally means swift thief, is a small dinosaur that lived in Asia between 75 and 71 million years ago. Velociraptor grew up to 6.8 feet long with a body mass of only 31 to 43 pounds. so it was approximately the size of a modern-day turkey. It was also covered in feathers. Brachylophosaurus comes from the Greek words for short-crested helmet, and this was a type of hadrosaur found in Montana, Utah, and Alberta, Canada. Brachylophosaurus lived about 81 to 76.7 million years ago, and it was first discovered in 1936. Brachylophosaurus is most notable for its bony crest, which forms a flat, paddle-like plate over the top of its rear skull. Depending on their age, some had crests that covered nearly their entire skull. Researchers have suggested that the crests were used for pushing contests. An adult Brachylophosaurus grew from 30 to 36 feet long and weighed about 7.5 tons. Laelinosaurus was a small herbivore that lived 118 to 110 million years ago, first discovered in Australia in 1989. It was only about 3 feet long. During Laelinosaurus's time, Australia would have been within the Antarctic Circle, but it was significantly warmer than it is today, although still with extended periods of daylight and nighttime. Nothing prepared me for how gobstoppingly humongous a Tyrannosaurus rex truly is. Its name literally means tyrant king in Latin, and it is one of the most identifiable dinosaurs of all time. T-Rex lived throughout what is now western North America. Fossils are found in rock formations dating from 68 to 66 million years ago, and this was one of the last non-avian dinosaurs to exist before the massive extinction event. Tyrannosaurus rex was a bipedal carnivore with a massive skull balanced by a long, heavy tail. The forelimbs of T-Rex were short but unusually powerful for their size. T-Rex could grow to lengths of over 40 feet long and 13 feet high at the shoulder, and they could weigh just under 10 tons. Although other theropods rivaled or exceeded T-Rex in size, T-Rex is still among the largest known land predators and exerted the strongest bite force among all terrestrial animals. T-Rex was considered an apex predator, meaning that it preyed on nearly every other animal it coexisted with, including hadrosaurs, armed herbivores, and even sauropods. T-Rex may have also been an opportunistic scavenger willing to consume nearly anything it passively came in contact with. The abundance of fossilized material has allowed significant research into many aspects of T-Rex's life, eating habits, physiology, biomechanics, and even the potential speed at which it moved. The first remains of what is now known as Tyrannosaurus rex were teeth found in 1874 in Colorado, followed by cranial elements found in the 1890s. The first partial skeleton was found in Wyoming in 1900, and 2 years later, a second partial skeleton was found in Hell Creek, Montana. The most complete skeleton of a T-Rex was found in Hell Creek in 1990 and nicknamed Sue. A legal battle ensued over her ownership before the fossil collection was purchased by the Field Museum of Natural History at auction for $7.6 million. Over 25,000 hours were spent taking rock off of the bones, which were then shipped to New Jersey to be mounted and to Chicago for assembly. The mounted skeleton appears today at the Field Museum. A study of the bones reveals that Sue reached full size at age 19 and died around the age of 28, which is the longest estimated lifespan of any known T-Rex. Tyrannosaurus rex was historically depicted as a living tripod, with its body pitched upright and slightly forward, standing on its two hind legs, with its tail dragging along the ground, similar to the posture of a kangaroo. This concept dates back to an 1865 reconstruction of a Hadrosaurus, the first known bipedal dinosaur, and the notion was further reinforced by the unveiling of the first complete T-Rex skeleton at the American Museum of Natural History in this posture. This T-Rex was forced to stand in this position for 77 years before being dismantled in 1992 by which time scientists had realized that a living animal of this size standing in this position would have dislocated or weakened its joints and hips and damaged its spinal column. This popular but comical pose for T-Rex was erased in the public's imagination in the 1990s when films such as Jurassic Park introduced a more accurate posture with T-Rex's body parallel to the ground with its tail extended behind the body as a counterbalance to its heavy head. Fossilized skin impressions from the tail region of a Tyrannosaurus rex have led to debate about whether and to what extent Tyrannosaurus might have been covered in feathers. Most likely, feathers covered at least the upper side of T-Rex's trunk. Another popular theropod is the Allosaurus, who lived 155 to 145 million years ago in the late Jurassic period, long before the Tyrannosaurus rex. The name Allosaurus means different lizard, and the fossils of this genus were first discovered in 1877. Most fossils of Allosaurus have come from the North American Morrison Formation and also from Portugal. Allosaurus is estimated to have been about 32 feet long and weighed just under 2 tons. Allosaurus was most definitely an apex predator of its time, at the top of the contemporary food chain, and may or may not have hunted in packs. I have a lot of favorite dinosaurs, but this one is by far my absolute favorite. This is a Brachiosaurus, a sauropod that lived in North America during the late Jurassic from 154 to 150 million years ago. It was first described in 1903 from fossils found in the Colorado River Valley and given the generic name in Greek for arm lizard in reference to its proportionately long arms. Brachiosaurus is estimated to have been between 59 and 72 feet long, with a body weight of 31 to 51 tons. It had a disproportionately long neck and a small skull, as is typical for sauropods. Atypically, Brachiosaurus had longer forelimbs than hind limbs, which resulted in a steeply inclined trunk and a proportionally shorter tail. It was believed in the 19th and early 20th centuries that sauropods like Brachiosaurus were too massive to support their own weight on dry land and instead lived partly submerged in the water. In fact, Brachiosaurus would have been better adapted than most other sauropods to a fully terrestrial lifestyle through its slender limbs, high chest, wide hips, and short tail. Large air sacs connected to the respiratory system were present in the neck and trunk, vertebrae, and ribs, greatly reducing the overall density of the Brachiosaurus's body. Since the 1950s, it has been accepted that Brachiosaurus was entirely a land-dwelling creature who only entered the water perhaps occasionally to cool off. Next up, we have the Chasmosaurus, a genus of ceratopsian dinosaur from the late Cretaceous period in North America. Its name means opening lizard, referring to the large openings known as fenestrae in its frill. Chasmosaurus reached lengths of 14 to 15 feet long and weighed 1.5 to 2.2 tons, making it one of the smaller ceratopsians. Chasmosaurus were similar in overall build and weight to a white rhinoceros of today and needed to consume 120 pounds of plant matter every day. The function of the frill and horns is problematic. The horns are rather short, and the frill had such large fenestrae that it could not have offered much functional defense. The beak was more likely the defensive weapon, and it's possible that the frill was simply used to appear imposing or perhaps for thermoregulation. The frill may also have been brightly colored to draw attention to its size or as part of a mating display. A juvenile Chasmosaurus found in Alberta, Canada, reveals that Chasmosaurus most likely cared for its young, like its relative Triceratops much later. The juvenile was estimated to be about 3 years old and had similar proportions to an adult Chasmosaurus, which indicates that the young is not fast-moving. It would not need to be fast-moving to keep up with a herd. This fossil was complete except for the front limbs, which had fallen into a sinkhole, leading to the assumption that the juvenile probably drowned during a river crossing. The mean little critters coming up here are called Deinonychus, named for the Greek words for terrible claws. Deinonychus could grow up to 11 feet long and lived around 115 to 108 million years ago in the early Cretaceous period. Fossils have been recovered from Montana, Utah, Wyoming, and Oklahoma, and teeth have been found as far east as Maryland. Paleontologist John Ostrom studied Deinonychus in the late 1960s and revolutionized the way scientists thought about dinosaurs at the time. This led to the dinosaur renaissance and ignited the debate on whether dinosaurs were warm or cold-blooded. This is Parasaurolophus, which means near-crested lizard in Greek, and it is a genus of hadrosaur that lived in western North America and possibly also in Asia in the late Cretaceous period from 76.5 to 73 million years ago. It was a herbivore that could move both as a biped or a quadruped. The function of Parasaurolophus's cranial crest is speculated to be for communication, improved hearing, visual recognition of species or gender, or perhaps for thermoregulation. Parasaurolophus is known from many adult specimens as well as a juvenile nicknamed Joe that was found in 2009. Joe was excavated and identified as being only 1 year old when it died, and thus far it is the most complete skeleton of Parasaurolophus that has ever been found. Parasaurolophus had a very fast growth rate and reached full maturity in about a year. This is Thessalosaurus, which means godlike or wondrous in Greek, and this was one of the last dinosaurs found before the Great Extinction Event 66 million years ago. It grew up to 13 feet in length and preferred to live near rivers and streams. I filmed this train really quick while there were no children on it. I believe it's a $5 ride for it to take you all around the park and show you all the dinosaurs if you don't feel like walking all of it. And with that, we had seen everything there is to see in Dinosaur World except for the 2 indoor museums. Dogs are not allowed inside the museums, so I stayed outside with Abra while Michael went inside to film. I'm going to skip over a lot of his footage because, as you can see, this is a lot of bones and artifacts that are behind glass, but they were pretty hard to see because of how dark it was, and the GoPro he was filming with does not pick up in the dark very well. But the animatronics part of this exhibit was really, really cool. Well, that's going to wrap up all the footage that I have from Dinosaur World in Plant City, Florida. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and again, I do apologize if I have unintentionally misquoted any information or mispronounced any names. I have done my best to educate myself, but I am a human and I do make mistakes from time to time. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you another day in another one.